From the deserts of Abu Dhabi to the skies of the world, Etihad Airways has risen in just 2 decades to become a symbol of modern Gulf aviation. Founded in 2003 by royal decree, Etihad was born with bold ambition to project the image, culture, and dynamism of the United Arab Emirates onto a global stage. Armed with state support, visionary strategy, and a brand identity rooted in Arabian hospitality, Etihad quickly distinguished itself through luxurious cabins, cutting-edge aircraft, and daring partnerships. From introducing The Residence, an ultra-luxury suite in the sky, to connecting Abu Dhabi with major cities across every continent, the airline carved a place among the world's most recognizable premium carriers. Yet its path has not been without turbulence. Aggressive expansion and equity investments brought both opportunities and financial strain. Restructuring and fleet optimization have since reshaped Etihad into a leaner, stronger Airline One focused on sustainability, service excellence, and Abu Dhabi's role as a global hub. Today, Etihad continues to fly the UAE's vision higher, carrying millions each year while redefining what modern air travel can be. Buckle up as we chart its remarkable journey from royal decree to global skies. If this story inspires you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more journeys above the clouds. Etihad Airways was created by royal decree in July 2003 by Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan, then Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, with a clear mandate to transform Abu Dhabi into a global aviation hub and strengthen the Emirates' profile on the world stage. Unlike Dubai's Emirates, which had been built up gradually since the 1980s, Etihad was launched as a fully state-backed initiative from the outset, with government capital and strategic backing ensuring immediate scale and credibility. The airline's inaugural flight took place on November 5, 2003, a short demonstration hop from Abu Dhabi International Airport to Al Ain using a leased Airbus, a 330-200. Just a week later, on November 12, 2003, Etihad began its first scheduled service to Beirut. With only 2 leased A330-200s, the carrier entered the market cautiously but set ambitious goals. From the beginning, the strategy was clear. Focus on wide-body aircraft to open long-haul routes, positioning Abu Dhabi as an intercontinental hub rather than a regional airline base. Growth was rapid. By the end of 2006, Etihad had built a fleet of nearly 24 modern aircraft and was already flying to about 40 destinations across the Middle East, Africa, Europe, and Asia. The induction of its first Boeing 777-300ER in 2006 was a milestone that opened new possibilities: North American routes, deeper access into Asia, and broader connectivity with Europe. These long-range jets gave Etihad the reach it needed to compete head-to-head with Emirates and Qatar Airways, both of which were also scaling aggressively at the time. Etihad also prioritized innovation and premium positioning. In 2005, it became the first Middle Eastern airline to introduce in-flight broadband through Boeing's connection system, a bold move that reflected Abu Dhabi's ambition to present Etihad as technologically advanced and forward-looking. Inside the cabins, the airline invested in high-end products: lie-flat business-class seats, large personal entertainment screens, chef-driven menus, and a premium-first service concept designed to establish Etihad as a 5-star global carrier. As a fledgling airline, the financial was full of challenges. Load factors were low, yields were modest, and competition in key markets was fierce. The early years were marked by losses as capacity consistently outpaced demand. Yet, the unwavering support of the Abu Dhabi government ensured the airline could maintain its aggressive expansion. Capital injections covered losses, while aircraft orders continued uninterrupted, signaling confidence in the long-term vision. By 2007, Etihad had carried more than 300,000 passengers in its first year of full operation, expanded its network to over 40 destinations, and built a fleet that already rivaled established carriers in scale. The foundation for a global network was in place. Abu Dhabi was firmly positioned as a rising hub. Etihad had carved out an identity as a premium, innovation-driven airline. and the stage was set for the more ambitious expansion that would define the next decade. From 2008 to 2014, Etihad Airways entered its most aggressive growth phase, evolving from a young regional carrier into a global aviation player. The airline's strategy was twofold: build out Abu Dhabi as a central hub and extend reach through fleet growth and strategic investments abroad. The hub and spoke model around Abu Dhabi was reinforced by massive infrastructure upgrades. The Emirate invested billions into airport capacity. A new parallel runway opened in 2009, and the midfield terminal development positioned the hub to accommodate surging demand. Passenger traffic surged, climbing to nearly 7 million by the mid-2000s and continuing upward as Etihad's network grew. Fleet expansion was central to this strategy. Etihad introduced new long-haul wide-bodies, such as the Boeing 777-300ER and later the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, while placing orders for Airbus A380s. By 2014, the airline operated around 100 aircraft, with nearly 20 new deliveries that year alone. These aircraft supported rapid expansion to Europe, Asia, Africa, North America, and Australia, bringing Etihad's scheduled destinations to over 70 cities and its extended partnership network to more than 375. A defining element of this period was the equity alliance model. Rather than relying solely on traditional alliances or code shares, Etihad pursued minority stakes in several foreign carriers to funnel traffic into Abu Dhabi. Through these partnerships, Etihad marketed a virtual network of over 375 destinations by 2014, far beyond its own direct operations. The airline also invested heavily in its premium brand image. In 2014, Etihad introduced The Residence aboard its A380s, a three-room suite complete with private butler service, marketed as the world's most luxurious commercial airline product. Alongside revamped first and business class cabins, these innovations cemented Etihad's positioning as a luxury airline, competing head-to-head with Emirates and Qatar Airways. Financially, the expansion brought mixed results. Etihad achieved strong passenger growth, carrying over 10 million travelers in 2012, a 23% jump year-on-year, and reporting its first modest profit, $42 million net income on revenues of $4.8 billion. By 2014, passenger volumes approached 15 million annually. Yet, the equity alliance model carried significant risk as several of its partners were struggling financially. By the end of 2014, Etihad had transformed from a fledgling startup into a global carrier with a high-profile brand, a modern fleet, and a web of equity-linked airlines. Abu Dhabi was firmly established as a long-haul transfer hub, and Etihad had carved out a bold but risky strategy of global expansion built on aggressive investment and premium innovation. By 2015, Etihad Airways entered a turbulent phase as its once celebrated equity alliance strategy began to unravel. Investments in struggling carriers such as Alitalia, Air Berlin, and Jet Airways quickly turned into financial liabilities. To keep these partners afloat, Etihad injected billions of dollars, but the strategic benefits never materialized. By 2017, Air Berlin had collapsed, Alitalia was placed under bankruptcy protection, and Jet Airways was heading toward insolvency. The airline was forced to write off massive investments, exposing the fragility of its ambitious expansion plan. The financial consequences were severe. In 2016, Etihad reported a record $1.87 billion loss, primarily from write-downs and restructuring charges tied to its equity partners. With mounting pressure, the board appointed Tony Douglas as CEO in 2017 to oversee a fundamental turnaround. Under his leadership, Etihad abandoned the equity alliance approach and shifted focus back to its core Abu Dhabi operations. The restructuring program included heavy cost-cutting, staff reductions, and a recalibration of the network toward profitable trunk routes. Fleet plans were also scaled back. Orders for Airbus, A350s and Boeing 787s were reduced or deferred. The flagship Airbus A380, once central to Etihad's ultra-luxury branding with the 3-room residence suite, became an operational burden in a market shifting towards smaller, fuel-efficient wide-bodies. Although the airline maintained its reputation for premium service and cabin innovation, balancing high-end product with sustainable economics proved increasingly difficult. By 2018 to 2019, Etihad had effectively repositioned itself as a more traditional Gulf carrier. The company pulled out of marginal destinations such as Edinburgh and Perth, consolidating around its strongest routes. Abu Dhabi remained the hub, but the earlier ambition to compete head-on with Emirates and Qatar Airways had clearly faded. By the end of the decade, Etihad had formally dismantled its equity alliance and absorbed billions in losses. Nonetheless, the restructuring measures brought initial stability. The airline streamlined its workforce, reduced costs, and narrowed its focus to sustainable growth. While smaller in scale, Etihad retained a strong premium brand identity, but its future trajectory depended less on grand acquisitions and more on disciplined financial management. The COVID-19 pandemic struck Etihad Airways at a delicate stage of restructuring, accelerating a transformation that was already underway. In 2020, the airline's passenger business collapsed almost overnight. Traffic plunged 76% to just 4.2 million passengers, down from 17.5 million in 2019, while passenger revenues shrank by 74%. The impact on financials was devastating, with Etihad swinging to a core operating loss of $1.7 billion compared to an $800 million loss the prior year. To survive, Etihad and its shareholder, the Abu Dhabi government, acted decisively. Large-scale workforce reductions were implemented, with hundreds of jobs eliminated across all divisions, including cabin crew. Salaries were cut by 25 to 50% across the company, recruitment was frozen, and overall headcount declined from roughly 20,530 employees in August 2019 to below 20,000 by mid-2020. In parallel, the route network was dramatically thinned. Numerous international services were suspended, while a portion of the fleet was parked or converted temporarily to cargo operations to support freight demand and repatriation flights. Government backing was crucial during this period. CEO Tony Douglas repeatedly emphasized the support of Etihad's shareholder in enabling the airline to stand firm despite the unprecedented downturn. The airline used the crisis to push ahead with structural cost reduction measures. A critical fleet decision came in 2020 to 2021 when Etihad announced the complete retirement of its Boeing 777-300ER fleet by the end of 2021. This marked a pivot to a leaner, fuel-efficient wide-body fleet, anchored on the Boeing 787 Dreamliner and Airbus A350. The human toll was significant. By mid-2021, Etihad had reduced its workforce by nearly one-third compared to pre-crisis levels, reflecting both cost pressures and the downsizing of its operations. At the same time, management began recasting Etihad's positioning. Rather than aspiring to be a mega-hub airline on the scale of Emirates or Qatar Airways, Etihad embraced a model as a mid-sized premium carrier, focused only on profitable core routes. Despite the turbulence, the airline maintained limited passenger services throughout 2020 to 2021, mainly in the form of evacuation, humanitarian, and repatriation flights. Cargo became a lifeline, with several aircraft temporarily converted to freighters. This revenue stream cushioned some of the passenger collapse and demonstrated Etihad's operational flexibility. By 2022, the carrier emerged leaner and strategically refocused. Its simplified fleet, trimmed workforce, and reduced network left it smaller but more sustainable. The company publicly set a target to return to profitability by 2023, leveraging the efficiency of its younger aircraft, digitalization of operations, and a sharpened focus on premium service. Etihad ended the pandemic era with far fewer ambitions of global dominance, but with a renewed commitment to financial discipline and resilience, a transformation forced by crisis but necessary for its long-term viability. In October 2022, Abu Dhabi's Sovereign Wealth Fund, ADQ, assumed full control of Etihad Airways, and appointed Antonoaldo Neves, the former CEO of TAP Air Portugal, as Group Chief Executive. Neves wasted no time in recalibrating the airline's trajectory. His mandate was clear: drive growth, but ensure profitability. Etihad unveiled a strategy that targeted tripling annual passenger volumes to approximately 30 million by the end of the decade and nearly doubling its fleet to around 150 aircraft. Unlike the expansive but unprofitable equity stake model of the 2010s, this plan prioritized medium and long-haul markets with proven demand, linking the Gulf with Asia, Europe, and the U.S. East Coast. Ultra-long-haul services, once a hallmark of Etihad's ambitions, were largely abandoned in favor of commercially viable corridors. India was quickly identified as a cornerstone market, with 6 new destinations earmarked for launch. Central to Neves's strategy was disciplined fleet renewal. Etihad accelerated the retirement of older aircraft, such as the Boeing 777-300ERs and Airbus A330s, consolidating around modern, fuel-efficient models. By 2021, Etihad already operated nearly 40 Boeing 787 Dreamliners and had begun inducting Airbus A351s. Going forward, the fleet would be anchored by these 2 types, maximizing efficiency while avoiding the complexity of legacy aircraft. Importantly, Etihad avoided any speculative mega orders, instead sticking to existing commitments and focusing on utilization and profitability. Equally critical was sustainability, now enshrined as a core element of the airline's identity. In late 2020, Etihad became the first Gulf carrier to commit to net zero emissions by 2050, setting an interim goal of halving emissions by 2035 relative to 2019. Initiatives included the Greenliner program, which offset the emissions of its 787-710 fleet for a full year, and a $600 million transition sukuk, an Islamic green bond to finance next-generation aircraft and decarbonization projects. Partnerships reinforced this agenda. In 2022, Etihad signed an MOU with Spanish energy group Cepsa to co-develop sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, derived from waste feedstocks, with the potential to cut CO2 emissions by as much as 80%. On the partnership front, Etihad deliberately pivoted away from the failed equity alliance model of the past. Neves explicitly ruled out any new mergers or ownership stakes, focusing instead on traditional code shares and bilateral partnerships. New agreements with carriers such as Lufthansa Group and TAP Air Portugal expanded Etihad's network reach, offering reciprocal benefits for frequent flyers without the financial risks of equity investment. The airline's alliance was thus reimagined as a flexible network of code-share partners rather than a costly portfolio of minority stakes. From 2023 onward, Etihad also doubled down on digital transformation and customer experience. With Abu Dhabi International Airport's new terminal as its anchor, the airline rolled out a revamped website and mobile app in late 2024. These platforms featured localized content, additional language support, including Hindi, expanded digital payment options in key markets, and self-service functions. Dozens of micro-features were deployed in rapid cycles, reflecting a startup-like agility. Executives highlighted personalization and speed as key differentiators, aiming to rebuild brand loyalty post-pandemic. Marketing shifted away from abstract luxury slogans like "Flying Reimagined" to more grounded promises of convenience, wellness, and reliability. Taken together, the Neves era has reshaped Etihad into a disciplined, sustainability-driven, digitally agile airline. The focus is now on becoming a profitable mid-sized global carrier, anchored in Abu Dhabi, but with a clear eye on commercial viability. Growth is planned, but measured. Brand identity is being refreshed, but with substance over excess. By 2025, Etihad is positioning itself not as a rival superhub to Emirates, but as a leaner, sharper competitor in the premium long-haul segment, an airline designed for resilience in the volatile aviation industry. As of 2025, Etihad has repositioned itself as a lean, mid-sized premium carrier with a fleet of about 90 modern aircraft serving 75-plus destinations. Profitability returned in 2023, with revenues approaching pre-COVID levels, while over 30 codeshare partnerships extend its global reach. The airline continues to invest in premium service refreshed cabins, onboard Wi-Fi, wellness programs, and upgraded Abu Dhabi lounges. Looking forward, Etihad's strategy rests on focus, modernization, and sustainability. It is concentrating on profitable long-haul corridors, renewing its fleet with 787s and A350s, and targeting net zero by 2050. Industry observers see Etihad as right-sized, no longer chasing scale, but pursuing profitability, quality, and environmental leadership. The challenge now is to scale to 30 million passengers while keeping its green commitments, potentially making Etihad a model of disciplined reinvention in global aviation.